And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, back with another off-season supporter series. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have the long January and February months to get through before we get back to footy. So I thought, let's have some chats. And as I told you guys, ladies and gentlemen, I have some fantastic female footy fans to sit down and chat why they love football, why they love their club. And I have a fantastic person joining me getting my connections. Liam, thank you so much for this one. So anybody that knows that particular name, I might have given away who this club we're talking about today is, but joining me is Julia. Julia, thank you for hopping on the podcast. Appreciate you hopping on.
Hi, so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So before we get into the footy, I know this is a footy show, but before we get into the footy talk, I thought let's find out just a little bit about you. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself outside of the game of football.
Sure thing. So, my name is Julia Farragut. I'm 29 years old. I was born and raised in Melbourne. I then moved to Canberra when I was 18 and I lived there for 8 years. Then I moved back to Melbourne again, which is where I am now. I have a couple of jobs. So, at the moment, I work as both a lawyer and a writer. Within the writing stuff, there is a little bit of footy related things as well. Um, in my spare time, I guess I really love reading. I love books, and I spend a lot of time going to the theater as well.
Fantastic. Not only a footy fan, but also a well-educated footy fan. Absolutely love that for sure. So let's hop into it. Always love talking to Australians about this. I need to know, what's your favorite thing about the sport of football?
I feel like this is such an obvious question, and yet I don't actually know if anyone has really asked me this before. I feel like it's just automatic. If you have a team, you love it, you just get stuck into the details.
Hmm.
Um, I think I love it because of the really big, I love the feeling. I love the big adrenaline rush that comes with so much of watching the game. So I love the moment right before the game starts when all the players are lining up and the crowd roars. I think that's one of my favorite moments. I love the excitement, the intensity, the speed of the game because footy was really the first sport that I got into. I then had a lot of difficulty adjusting to watching other sports as I got older. Getting into soccer was a bit of a struggle initially because I was like, well, why don't they just kick more goals? Then this would be like footy and this would be more fun.
Uh,
So yeah, I think definitely footy was the blueprint for me in sport, but there are so many different reasons why I love it. And uh, yeah, it's always been so much fun to watch and to follow and be part of the fandom and the community.
yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I have still to this day, there's so many different answers because everybody falls in love with a different thing. It's the speed, it's the high marks, it's the on non-stop action. There's so many different things. And I appreciate it because it's a lot like everything. Like there's always something different that somebody likes about it. So no, I really, really am awesome about this. So I love this question because it always brings back great memories for me. So for me watching the person that I'm talking with, what's your earliest footy memory?
Yeah, so I think my earliest football related memory, I should say, comes from when I was in year two. So I'm a Hawthorn supporter, and essentially I was born and raised a Hawthorn supporter. Both of my parents go for Hawthorn, so I was born and bred. I have a lot of the early memories, I think, are things that have been told to me from when I was too young to remember.
Hmm.
So I think the earliest memory that I have of something footy related that I did comes from when I was in year two. So when I was in year two, I had a teacher who was called Mr. Mark Williams, and he so happened to share a name with Mark Williams, the Hawthorn football player. And in that year, the football player, Mark Williams, was fined $4,000. And I saw this reported in the newspaper, and I was maybe like 7 years old, right?
Hmm.
And I thought it would be hilarious to cut out the fine, put it in my school diary, and then I took it to my teacher and I said, Mr. Williams, you've been fined $4,000. Um,
Cheeky.
and so I, very, very cheeky. And so I looked up the game recently to like, sort of make sure, is this memory correct? Like, did Mark Williams get fined? How
Hmm.
much money was it? And it turns out, because that was the year 2004, it was actually the line in the sand game that $4,000 fine was from.
That is awesome. Absolutely love it. That is fantastic. That's probably one of the best memory ones I've heard so far. So, my favorite part about introducing that is you kind of answered my next question. As you said,
Mm.
you are a Hawks supporter, which is again fantastic. And then you also answered my next question is, as you said, your parents are both Hawks supporters. So I'm going to kind of twist this the tiniest bit. Is the Hawks have a very unique color scheme. I've always wanted to ask this of a Hawks supporter. Is it a little weird that you have some very different colors in brown and gold?
See, here's the thing. I love our colors.
Okay.
Maybe again, it's because I've been indoctrinated since birth, but I have brown hair, I have brown eyes. For a decent chunk there, I was dyeing the bottom half of my hair blonde, as was kind of fashionable. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until after I did it that I realized I have just dyed my hair brown and gold. So that's how I lived
Love
for a
it.
number of years. So whenever someone would tell me, Hawthorn's got the worst colors, brown and gold, what do you do with that? I'd say, well, that's basically how I dress myself. I have brown hair. I like to wear gold jewelry. To me, those colors have always worked and have always been nice colors. So, yeah, I personally have never really seen a problem with it, despite opposition taunts.
I'm one of those. It's always just interesting for me because it is such a different color scheme. I'm not. It's not one that you see very often. So that's I'd
It's
always
true. It's very unique.
I'd always wanted to ask that. And again, I am not one to go on people's color schemes because every color has their own and it's actually appreciated. But then I want to go on to this one. Kind of the second half of another question I have is, as you said, your parents are Hawthorn supporters. You're a Hawthorn supporter. So I ask this in your family. Do you have any people that support other teams besides Hawthorn? And if so, how's the banter when your teams play?
So, in my family, not really. Like I said, both of my parents are supporters. Both independently became Hawthorn supporters a long time before they met. So that's very well established. Um, I think I maybe have one or two family members who go for other teams, but not very passionately, more like in name. You have a lot of people in Melbourne who have teams, but then, necessarily very drift in and out of actually following their players. That being said, though, my partner is an Essendon supporter, and that has certainly created a lot of conflict recently.
Well, I will say this, as long as it's playful banter and as long as it stays during the game time, I think it's perfectly fine. But the one thing I got to give is I think the banter amongst Australians is hilarious. I have friends
It
that are
is.
different clubsies, and I will joke, I will message them 3 days before the game and go, "Come on, let's do some fun banter." And sometimes it is fantastic. Like I absolutely love it. I think absolutely taking the Mickey out of each other is hilarious. So I'm one of those. I love some playful banter, so I appreciate that when it comes to it. So let's have some fun. Let's go. As you said, you're brown and gold forever. So I must ask this: what was the first ever Hawthorne item that you were given or bought?
So I think what I can tell from photos is there are some pictures of me at a very young age with a Hawthorn beanie. So I think that's the first item that I was ever given. I think I had lots of different items very quickly, but that's the one that I can see from the photos.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then for me, as we kind of said, for me, I'm a huge sports person. I think fandom is such a unique thing because nobody fans exactly the same. Like me compared to a fan in Omaha, Nebraska, or as you there in Victoria, or somebody in Queensland. So I always love asking this question because it's different for everybody. Can you describe your fandom of the Hawthorne Hawks for me?
Sure, absolutely. And I think maybe a bit similar to what you've just said. For me, there is now a crossover between because I'm not only a fan of the Hawthorn Football Club, I'm now starting this work as a sports journalist as well. So now I have quite a big overlap. And I guess recently I've been thinking, okay, well, what do I do first and foremost as a fan? And like, what are the things that mean something to me as a fan? Because there's a lot of overlap between the two. But I think, at least to me, the place that I always start when I think about fandom is to me, being a fan of something means that you have a love for it. So if you're a footy fan, it means you have this immense love for the game. And to me, I think that's where everything starts. And that is, for the most part, really the only thing that actually matters to me. So when other people talk about their fandom, all I hear is, that's another person who loves the game. That's amazing. And then whatever their fandom looks like to them, will always be unique. And I think, at least for me, what that has looked like is having this really big love for footy. And the way that manifests is obviously going to games, watching games, listening on the radio when I haven't got a means to watch, checking the score if I'm stuck somewhere else while Hawthorn are playing, following the other games. Reading everything, particularly in the three-peat era when Hawthorn were playing finals. In those finals periods, I would find and read every Hawthorn related article I could find. If I went into a cafe, I was picking up the newspaper and flicking to the sports section. So I think that's very much what it means to me now. The sort of things that I do that are really driven out of a love for it.
Hmm. Absolutely love it. I always say I will never get on somebody for fanning differently than me because I know fandom is so different. It doesn't matter whether it's European and India, they go absolutely nuts. Like everything is about their sport. And then I'm an American, okay? Some of our fans are really weird. Some of our people are fans of just a certain person or a certain player or a certain team or a certain coach. So I will never get on somebody. Fan the way you want to fan. Enjoy the
I will say
experience.
this, as I've grown older, I think when I was younger, I was very much a Hawthorn fan first.
Hmm.
I was very focused on following my team, on watching Hawthorn games, specifically following Hawthorn players. And as I've gotten older, my fandom of footy as a sport in general has grown a lot more. I'm now a really big fan of going to neutral games, for example.
Hmm.
Whereas growing up, I would very much, if I was going in person, it would be to see a Hawthorn game. Whereas now I love going to neutral games as well. And I feel like they're so much fun in a different way. I usually get very stressed. I'm emotionally invested in the outcome of a
Hmm.
Hawthorn game. I want them to win. Whereas when I go to a neutral game, I can be a lot more relaxed. I can really root for the sport of footy and to want to see a good, close game. And I found a
Hmm.
lot of enjoyment and excitement in that. That is similar but different to how I love my team.
It's very interesting. I've said this before. There's another podcaster up here in the States. Their name is Craig Wessels, who is a Yank on the footy. And I know it's a little weird being from a cat supporter to a Hawthorn fan, but I must say this. One of his favorite quotes, and I love saying it because I 100% agree with him, is that he wants to see his team win and eight other great football matches. And I absolutely love that sentiment because as somebody that watches a lot of footy, I watch the AFL, I watch the AFLW, and then I watch some of this, I watch a lot of the state league games when I can. I just enjoy a good game of football, like
Absolutely.
legitimately. So I am 100% with you. So seeing somebody that just enjoys this sport, absolutely fantastic. So as I kind of said, this particular series this year is female fans because I'm a bloke. I will never know what it's like to be a female fan. So I kind of want to get into just a little bit of this. So I want to ask this, do you feel that you're treated a little bit differently as a female fan compared to your male counterparts?
Yeah, I absolutely think that I am. And I realized it pretty early. So I think maybe the best example I have to sort of demonstrate this is I was a teenage girl during the Hawthorn three-peat era,
Hmm.
which was amazing. It was so much fun and it was so thrilling and satisfying to get to see my team have success.
Hmm.
And, even from a young age, I knew that that was never guaranteed, that there were lots of very long suffering fans who hadn't seen flags. And I felt very blessed that I got to see so many and had, these incredible opportunities to see my team play really well and do really well. That being said, as a teenage girl, whenever I met someone new who was a boy or a man and mentioned to them that I was a fan of Hawthorn,
Hmm.
almost always I would then get the comment, "Oh, you're just a bandwagon jumper. Do you actually even know anything about football like this? Um, what do you even know about this sport?"
Hmm.
Would almost always be the reaction that I got. And this would always be from boys who didn't know me, who had never met me before,
Hmm.
because as soon as they'd heard me talk for about like 15 seconds, they would be able to recognize instantly, oh, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She watches games.
Hmm.
Because sometimes they would go, do you even know who the coach and the captain are? And yeah, it would take like 10 seconds to start rattling off names. And they'd go, oh, okay, yep, nope, she's the real deal. Um, but it used to confuse me so much. I'd be like, well, why would I be talking about this if I wasn't interested in it? And why is this happening to me, but I'm not seeing it happen to any of my other male friends when they start
Hmm.
talking about footy to someone for the first time? How come they don't have to rattle off their credentials? How come they can just go into a conversation and start talking about it? Why have I got to sort of prove myself that I'm legit? So yeah, that happening a few times kind of made me realize um, in a string of lots of other things as well that, oh, this is kind of not a place that was built for me. And I am a new person or an unexpected person, I guess, who is entering this space. And yeah, so that sort of exercise of having to prove my credentials was always really strange to me. And I think the reason I also find it strange even now is, like I was just saying when you asked me about fandom in general, to me, I actually don't care if you can name the captain or the coach of your
Hmm.
team. If you're a fan and you love the sport of footy, then that's all I need. This is definitely how I love footy, is knowing things and, like I said, reading as many articles as I can find in those exciting times. But if you just love it and you have a team and you go to some games or you watch it, I don't actually need you to pass any kind of test to be a fan.
Hmm.
So I think sometimes that sort of obsession, particularly that gets put on female fans of, oh, well, what would you even know about this, is really alarming
Hmm.
and pretty unfair.
Yeah, no, 100, I 100%, and we can talk about this after the podcast, but I need to show you an episode that I did with Dr. Casey Simons because
Oh my God, I love Casey.
she has studied this, and I
Yeah.
had her on the podcast, and I remember asking her, I said, as a male supporter, I said, how can I help? And she had such a great answer, and it was so
Mm,
fantastic. And I think it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular series as well, and that I've really jumped into the W side as much as I have. Like many people that listen to the podcast know, I am a very avid W supporter because they just don't get the love from the media that the men do. So it's so much fun. So hearing you say that, like, I absolutely love that because there's so many people like they could be bitter about it or they could be salty or angry and like, why do I have to? It's like just be a fan. Just let people be a fan because fans are going to fan differently. I don't want to set one like you're not a real
yeah,
fan if you don't do this. No, let fans be fans. Like that's the biggest thing. Like there's so many arguments that are just so asinine to me. So
absolutely.
100% with you, Julia. I truly appreciate that. So just wanted to bring that up because like I said, Dr. Casey Simons, love her to death. She's absolutely fantastic. I love her work. I keep track of it so much. So sorry to get off on a tiny tangent there. So I will go back to it. And the last question on this is that when you do go to the footy, how if you have some advice for fellow female fans on how to enjoy the sport and not kind of drown out the
Mm,
bloke that are going to
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
ruin the situation. So how would you say to help them enjoy the fan experience?
Yeah, I think if you're going to men's games, have a good crowd that you go with, take some
Mhm.
friends, have some good people, like make sure you have a good time, have a good posse. Uh, I've definitely had experiences where your day does get a little bit ruined by, annoying people sitting near you. So I think it's always good to have your people. If people are annoying you, report them to the antisocial hotline. Not that they'll do anything, but you can try.
Mhm.
Or just move and find another seat and leave them to their own devices. But I think to step back a little bit in thinking about this question and offering advice to female fans, I have a lot of conversations with the women in my life or women who I encounter who have never really been into watching sports. They
Mhm.
see the phenomenon of watching sports as a very male hobby. That's what male friends do with each other. Women have different hobbies, they connect differently. And for whatever reason, they've tried to watch sports. Maybe someone has taken them to a game or like a game's been put on in front of them and they've never really gotten into it. And so sometimes they'll ask me, like, what do you get out of it? Or they'll start asking me about it. And the piece of advice I will always have for them, and the question that I will always ask is, have you tried watching women's sport? Because it's different.
Mhm.
And I have been so pleased by so many of the women in my life who have managed to find a way to enjoy watching sport. And the answer has been that they've tried watching women's sport. With the success of the Matildas in the last few
Mhm.
years, I was so pleased to see so many women who I had never seen be into sports or watch sports before were suddenly so excited to watch the Matildas. And it just really affirmed to me that so much of the disconnect in why a lot of women don't watch sport is because the only option they've really been given for most of their lives is to watch
And
men's sport.
sports. Yep.
And there is just something different, I really believe, about when you watch a women's sport for the first time and you have that moment, even if you're not a sporty person yourself, if you're the least athletic person actually, and it's not about that you have an aspiration that you would be that person, but just knowing that the person on the field is similar to you in that way and going, oh, this is actually something that's meant for me in that way, and in just some of the smaller ways that women's sport is presented and designed is so exciting. And so that's definitely my main piece of advice is if you find sport as a concept and as an institution is really alienating to you as a female fan, I would definitely try and watch women's sport over men's sport.
Yep. Yeah, and great advice. Truly, truly, I agree with that on that, especially considering there's some crackingly good players in the W. There's some cracking cricketers. There's some great players on the Matildas. So Australia has some really good female sports people, 100% with you on that one. So we'll go away from that a little bit. Let's go back to the fandom. I cannot wait for this. Can you remember the first ever Hawthorn game that you attended live?
I personally cannot. I've had this recounted to me by my dad. So apparently, the first game that he ever took me to was a Hawthorn Carlton game at Princess Park, and he took me and my younger brother, and I would have been maybe 5 or 6 years old. So I have a lot of sort of blurry memories from, I guess,
Hmm.
that like early primary school age of like, the boundary, sitting, in the stands, that are just all sort of mushed together. But yes, apparently that is my first ever time at the footy, Hawthorn Carlton.
Fantastic. So, and I cannot wait for this one. This is one of my favorite questions because for some people, this is a doozy. This throws people a little bit. So, Hawthorne has got a rich history. They have had some magnificent players, don the brown and gold. So, I'll ask this: do you have a favorite player of the past that played for Hawthorne, and do you have a favorite player currently on the Hawks list?
Totally. Like you say, I'm pretty spoilt for choices, particularly when you
Mm-hmm.
look back into the men's history of Hawthorn. Although I do have a strong bias towards players who I have personally gotten to see
Mm-hmm.
play. Of the moment, my favorite Hawthorn men's player is Kalshadir. So Kalshadir has an amazing story. He basically
Mm-hmm.
wasn't on anyone's radar to be drafted. Uh, no other club was really interested in him, and he was on our radar, of course, because his father, Paul Deere, played for Hawthorn. And so we ended up getting him as a father-son pick. And, made even, I guess, the thing that makes the story even more rich is that Paul Deere passed away before Kalsha was drafted, and he passed away from cancer. And Kalsh's mother and his family have set up a charity called Dare to Hope in his name that raises money for research into cancer. And so it was bittersweet in a way that Kalsha got drafted and started to play, even though Paul's no longer here to see him. And I guess from my perspective, being a Hawthorn supporter is a very big family thing, obviously, as both my parents support it. So it's pretty exciting to me when I can watch a player and it turns out that my mum watched their dad. She finds it slightly more alarming than I do to reflect on the passage of time. But she's a bit more switched off from footy nowadays. She leaves it up to me. But it's nice when I can name drop someone and she goes, "Oh, hang on a minute, dear. Why did that sounds familiar? Are they related?" And we put the puzzle
Mm-hmm.
pieces together,
Yep.
and then she can give me the lowdown on what their father was like, and I can fill her in on the player who's playing now, which is always this really nice connecting moment. And I have really loved Kalsha ever since he debuted against the Western Bulldogs. Again, the story was wild. The kid had barely been drafted. We picked him up in the 50s as a father-son draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
We really looked at him as he's tall, he shows a lot of potential, but only played a bit of footy in his later years because he played a lot of basketball. And funnily enough, because his father was sick and he passed away, he wasn't super consistent. And he was, in the words of the draft eyes, he had other things going on. He was a bit distracted
Mm-hmm.
for very obvious and explainable reasons. But then Mitch Lewis got injured, Mabior Chol got suspended, and suddenly we're in the beginning of the season and it's like, well, who even is the next full forward who we can call up? Oh, it's this lanky kid called Kalshadir who is probably just going to get bashed.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll throw him in. That's what we've got, and we'll see how he goes. And then he kicked a goal almost immediately and basically never left the team for the rest of that season. So
Mhm.
that was pretty spectacular. And to see him have so much success and continue on the legacy that his father put down, I thought is just so special. And because of the cancer connection as well, like unfortunately, my family has also been very affected by cancer. And I think that's a pretty universal thing. Like it affects so many different people. Like, you know, if you ask the people in your life, it's almost certain that they will know someone who's been affected by it, even if not personally. So, yeah, that story has always meant so much to me. And I've been so excited to watch him play. And I'm really hoping that he's going to have an exciting 2026 season.
Fantastic. And
Uh,
go ahead.
sorry. So he's my favorite player in the men's. I'm very excited to see what his sister Maya is like in the women's, as she has also
Mhm.
just been drafted. But I don't think I can call her my favorite yet, given I haven't seen her actually play a game. So my favorite player of the moment in the women's is probably Jazz Fleming, because Jazz was our first ever drafted
Mhm.
player to Hawthorn, and uh, I watched and followed the AFLW right from its inception in 2017. It was so exciting, but I definitely felt like I was holding something back, waiting for Hawthorn to get a team, and so it was very
Mhm.
exciting when we finally got a license and entered in the 2022 season seven season. And I watched that draft live. That was our first draft, and Jazz was the first player who we ever drafted. So that was definitely very, very special. So I followed her ever since then. And she's just such an exciting player and an exciting midfielder. And right from the start, I've always felt that she's such an important player for us, and she really is the future of our women's team, and that she is going to be really essential and really uh, important to our side. So I have really loved watching her and will continue to enjoy watching her in the W. In terms of past players, our women's side, we've only played 4 seasons. So while
Mhm.
the history is being built and being made, and it's very exciting for that, it's not the richest history quite yet.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of men's players, I was a really big fan of Luke Bruce growing up. I
Mhm.
think particularly because he debuted in 2011, which was the year that I sort of started taking football really seriously and got very into it as a fan. It was very cool to see his development in its entirety. Whereas for a lot of other players, you know, when I was younger, I would watch games here and there and wouldn't follow things completely. Or there were other players who, when I started following seriously, had already, you know, gotten several years into their careers. I really got to follow Bruce from the beginning until the end last year, which is crazy to say that he's now
Mhm.
retired and actually is a past player. But yeah, he was always a really special one for me, getting to watch him throughout his career. And I watched a really solid percentage of the goals that he kicked in a row as well to equal that record, which was very exciting.
Definitely. So I'm gonna really quick question without notice here, just because, as you said, your parents are huge Hawks fans. Have you ever asked them what it was like to watch Chief go absolutely bonkers kicking goals? Because the man is an absolute legend.
I haven't asked that question specifically, but I certainly can. I do have a lot of different details from their fandom days, particularly in, I was going to say the Hawthorn Golden era. We've had quite a few, which is very exciting. But yeah, I absolutely love hearing their stories of what their fandom means to them. Like I found out recently that my mum won her workplace 1994 tipping competition. She beat like 200 men and she took it so,
I
which
love
as a
it.
woman is a big accomplishment. It's, you know, it gives you bragging rights.
Hmm.
And she took it so seriously. And she, you know, just the way she described it, that it was the 90s. So she used to write down her tips on a piece of paper every week and deliver them and put them in a box.
Hmm.
She would attend as many games as she could in person and then listen to the others on the radio as they were being played. She had a number of friends who supported other teams, and she would ring them every week to say, "Hey, what do you reckon? How are your boys going to go this week? Anything I should look out for? What's your history at this ground?" And just hearing all those sorts of details, I was like, that is so exciting to know that that's what it meant to you.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. Again, I love hearing him call in. He's so knowledgeable. And my favorite part is surprising. He's very humble about most of his accomplishments. Like when I hear him on Triple M and things like that, and they're like, complimenting him because he's in another Hall of Fame, and he kind of downplays it. So I've always loved Chief. He's very straightforward, and I truly appreciate that. So have to give him his kudos. He's one of my favorites to hear. I was never a Dermot Brereton type of person, so I always kind of stayed away from him. But so I'll ask this, as you said, you really got into it in 2011. So you've had some incredible runs when it comes to
Yeah,
flags and accomplishments
yeah.
and players. So I'm going to ask this. I know this isn't easy. Most memorable moment so far as a Hawks supporter.
Yeah, it's really hard to narrow down. And if you'll indulge me, I thought of three.
That's fine.
Um, because I guess when you think about the word memorable, like memorable doesn't always necessarily mean best. I
Yep.
think it means the things that stay with you.
Hmm.
So definitely, I think, first of all, the left field answer to this is that I was at the snow game.
Ah,
So,
GWS up in Canberra. Yes, I remember that so
so like
much.
I said,
So many people that I talk with were like, "Oh my God, it's snowing," and I'm like, "Is this supposed to be shocking? I see snow all the time." It's just,
it is, it
so,
is.
yeah.
So I lived in Canberra for 8 years. And absolutely, one of the thoughts I had when I thought about moving from Melbourne to Canberra was, what is this going to mean for the footy? I am moving quite a long way away from the MCG. My family, that'll be fine. What about the footy? But yeah, so I lived in Canberra for 8 years, and Hawthorn played in Canberra once in those 8 years. And I was so excited to, get the new fixture for that year, finally see they were playing in Canberra. My dad booked flights, came up to go to the game with me. And I guess for context, if snow is a very normal thing for you, in the 8 years I lived in Canberra, it snowed twice, and that was one of the two times. So it was a game in August, and the weather forecast from the day before was looking shocking. Like it was looking
Hmm.
really bad, like it was going to be very cold. And to be fair, whoever scheduled a night game in August in Canberra was already like making bad decisions because it was always going to be freezing. But the fact that it snowed was just hilarious. Like I just couldn't stop laughing
Hmm.
throughout so much of it because I was like, this is just so unbelievable. And this is just wild. So I think that's something that I will always remember just because of how absolutely bizarre it was. And like 2019 was not a good season for Hawthorn. The game against GWS had like no importance. There was no rivalry.
Hmm.
It should have been this completely ordinary game that really only meant something to me because it was my team playing in Canberra and yet has turned into definitely one of the most memorable moments I have as a supporter. Because again, now whenever I get asked by men that I'm meeting for the first time, okay, well, do you actually love Hawthorn? Like, what do you know about them? I get to say, I got snowed on for Hawthorn. Can you say that you got snowed on for your team?
Oh, my favorite part about that game is just the fact that Clarko during training went out topless
Yep,
the day
he did. That's
before,
right. Wouldn't
and
let him wear long
then
sleeves.
so many times they showed visuals of like literally I think they were in the huddle and one of the players opening his mouth and trying to catch snowflakes in his mouth. It was hilarious. Like I still to this day crack up watching that because GWS is all huddled up. They're trying to stay warm, and Hawthorne is just kind of like, yes, they just enjoyed
Yeah.
it. So it was so fun. So no, that's still one of those that I is a funny memory for me because I'm so used to snow. And again, it was funny watching snow in August here when it's like 32 degrees Celsius up here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
midsummer, so it was really kind of funny in a
It's not
mid-August seeing
exactly a,
snow while I was watching the game.
yeah.
So it was absolutely fantastic. So well, let's have some fun with it. Let's go to present day. We've talked about the past and so many great things. So I want to go to this last season. Thoughts on this last season? Because again, this was another one of those. This is a young Hawks team that is starting to kind of find their groove now. We're starting to see the emergence of Nick Watson and some of these young players. This is a fun Hawks team to watch. I know last year they kind of became everybody's second teams of the Hollywood Hawks, the Hawk
That
Ball,
was
as
hilarious,
so
honestly.
many would say. So I'll ask this: your thoughts on last season? Because again, didn't go as far as you probably would have loved to. I mean, everybody wants to make it to a grand final. Felt a little bit short, but again, another incredible season, and you're starting to see the building blocks after a great pickup of Tommy Barras, and Josh Battle really kind of solidified this Hawks team.
Yeah, absolutely. The men's season was definitely very exciting. I think there were some moments, obviously the men's season is so long. It really went up and
Mm.
down during the season itself. Games we won that were really exciting, games that we lost that we felt so frustrated by that we felt like we really should have won. But yeah, I mean, the ending, even though, like you say, we didn't make it quite all the way, the ending was so exciting. Like the two wins that we had were both such high adrenaline, massive wins. Although I tell you what, they really put me through the ringer in that final series because the 7 goals in a row that GWS kicked, I was just sitting on my couch, like frozen in fear. But I really shouldn't have lost hope because they did it for me in the end. And then to just dismantle Adelaide the following week was amazing. Then I did get to go and see the prelim in person at the MCG, which was very exciting and thankfully was a positive experience for about a quarter. So I did get something out of it at least, even though I had my hopes dashed pretty quickly. And yeah, look, it was disappointing to not make it to the grand final. I had, done the very exciting thing of registering for my grand final tickets in the week beforehand and going,
Hmm.
oh my God, could this, like, you start to believe, could this actually happen?
Yeah.
But overall, I still think it was a really positive season for us. And if you told me at the start of the year that we'd be playing a prelim, I would have said, that's crazy. Like, I can't believe that. And to play a prelim after we hadn't managed to make the top four was even more unbelievable. So I think it was a very exciting season. And like you say, the addition of adding Barras and Battle was really massive. And I've loved watching both of them play for Battle to get an Australian blazer. And I feel like Barras sometimes can be really underrated as well. Like,
Agree.
he does his role so well. And as someone who grew up in the three-peat era, just gives me such strong Brian Lake vibes. Like, he so rarely gets beaten in the air. He's such an amazing player in an aerial contest. And I always have so much confidence when I see the ball go near him. I'm like, I absolutely trust him to be able to block this and to send it back in the direction of one of our players. And I think moving over to Melbourne has been really good for him as well. Like, he played the most amount of games he's ever played in a season in his first season for us, which was pretty exciting. So, yeah, even though, look, losing to Geelong is always going to break my heart and not the
Mhm.
ideal way to end a season, when I look at it as a whole, yeah, I was very happy and there were a lot of really exciting moments to be a Hawthorn supporter this year.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I was fascinated to see how Battle and Barras would go into it because they were so good the year before, and it, I'm liking the way they're building. It's definitely going to be interesting. It was fun, all the talk of could they stay with four talls with Deer, Chol, and all that. It was like they were quite the interesting team for me. They were fun. They were fun to watch. I think they're building, and it's going to be fun to see how they go on. So I got to ask you, as you said, you keep track of it. Again, they're fun. You love your footy. Do you keep an eye on the off-season moves? Your thoughts on what Hawthorn has done in the trade and free agency period?
I do. So I'm not nearly as much of a trade expert as I'd like to be. Um, but like I said, I
Who
love.
is? Let's just be honest. Who
I
is?
mean,
And
look,
especially with the draft, because as an American, the draft system just does my head in. I will be
yeah,
100%
it
honest.
really does.
I love father son. I think the academies are actually really good for footy, but the point system does my head in. Like
It's very
I
confusing.
just don't
Yeah.
understand. They really need to simplify it. I've said it a few times. I think they should adopt what the women do. Just you have to have a pick within 18 picks to be able to match, and I think it would so uncomplicate things, but who knows? So,
Yeah, so I definitely do follow off-season moves. Like I said, I mean, if there's a news article out there about Hawthorn, I'll probably read it.
mhm.
Since starting to work as a sports journalist, I it has slightly changed how I engage with things in that last year after my first season covering the W, I really did just need a break afterwards, and I did sort of disengage in a bit of a bigger way in that I was like, I just need a bit of a breather from the footy world, and I didn't shut it off entirely, but um like I didn't write anything, I didn't make any content, I just sort of let it all happen. Because it's kind of crazy how fast the footy world moves sometimes. Like, if you are interested and you cover both the men's and women's, which I did to a certain extent this year, there is always something happening, which is
Hmm.
just kind of crazy. Like, if you count the number of days in between when the Hawthorn women lost to Carlton and got knocked out of the AFLW season, and when the men came back for their first day of preseason, I think the Hawthorn off season, so to speak, lasted 8 or 9 days before we started again. So
Yep.
really, when people talk about, oh, this is the footy downtime of the year, it just keeps going. Like the footy train actually never stops, right?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, there have definitely been years where I've paid less attention during the off season because I need a bit of a break and a bit of a breather to reset for the following year. And in sort of ramping up my involvement to cover the AFL, sometimes I need a bit more of a breather
Hmm.
than I think I would as a fan. But yeah, this off season, I really haven't slowed down, to be honest. I think probably because the Hawthorn men's had such a like high octane trade period this year, like it was kind of impossible to switch off. Every single day there was a new article about the Zach Merritt situation. Um, and then even though the women's season had a bit of a disappointing finish, I didn't really lose my momentum in that either, and enjoyed watching the women's draft as well. So yeah, I definitely keep an eye on the off-season movements, and I mean it's exciting, to start planning and plotting of what 2026 is going to look like and
Hmm.
thinking towards that first game. And even though it's quite a long wait if you're a women's supporter and there's still a while for me to build momentum yet, it's definitely building and I'm already getting excited for it to come back.
Yep. No, I'm 100% with you. I joke nowadays because I cover the women and the men that literally I am full bore covering some kind of footy game from about the second weekend of March, maybe the third, depending on it, because I also cover Sanford Waffle and VFL. So it's even more fun because there for a while the Sanford W would get started about a week before the AFL would. And I would literally have from then until like the second week of December where I have at least a footy game to
Hmm.
watch. So I know
It's
that
crazy.
I know that
Yep,
grind. Absolutely love it. But it's also the reason why I do these fun series during January and February because I need to talk a little bit of footy because I'm so used to going full bore during that entire time. So no, I 100% with you. It is a lot of fun. Once you catch the bug, it's difficult to get rid of it. So
it is.
100% with you. So I sent this question and I really need to change it, but it kind of does give me this fun was is that what I have written down is what are your expectations for next year? And I've always been one, I don't like saying expectations because it means that you expect something to happen. And
Hmm.
I think we've all sat through a season where something has gone haywire and something that you did not expect to happen happens. So I ask this, what are your thoughts on next year? Do you have expectations? Or are you one of those where you go, there's some things that you would like for Hawthorn to do, but if it doesn't happen, you're not going to absolutely jump off a bridge?
Yeah, I think maybe the way I would rephrase the question is, what are your hopes and dreams? Which is maybe obvious because then the answer would be, well, for Hawthorn to win 2 flags, that would be the ideal dream.
This is true.
But I think it probably is accurate to say that I do have expectations. Like there are hypothetical seasons where I would be disappointed with Hawthorn's performance. Like,
Hmm.
for us to feel like we would go backwards, I think, I kind of have an answer for that. So I think it's fair to say that I do have expectations, and I think different fans would have different expectations for their teams. Like I have friends who go for other teams and again, their hopes and dreams is to win a flag, but they certainly have like, I guess a benchmark in their head of what they expect and think that
Hmm.
they will see from their team. And if it's less than that, then yeah, they will feel disappointed and like their team has not met expectations. So, off the men's team finishing seventh and eighth and playing 2 final series in a row, I think I would be disappointed if the men don't play finals this year, which is
Hmm.
maybe like a big thing to say, but they've been doing well and pulling out these amazing runs, and it would be disappointing if that stopped.
Hmm.
And we've done all this work to try and, as you say, slot our team together, figure out how things work, add the missing pieces. There's definitely an expectation that that is continuing and that that's trending upwards. And I think it
Hmm.
would be frustrating for a lot of Hawthorn fans if that went the other way and that started going downwards instead. And I think things are pretty similar for our women's team as well. The women's team is kind of funny to talk about because we've only played 4 seasons.
Hmm.
So we're basically still a complete baby team. And, the same is true of the other three expansion teams as well. Uh, so I feel like that
As a fan
context
of one of
isn't
those, I'm
always,
100% know you there. As a Swan
yes,
supporter,
exactly.
trust me, I know exactly how you feel. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like it's the weirdest thing. So I know, sorry, I had to hop in there because as a Swan supporter, I know exactly what you mean.
Yes, I think weird is a good way to describe it. And I feel like a lot of the times that context is sort of lost. And I think from Hawthorn's perspective, honestly, it's kind of flattering that the context is lost because I think definitely a lot of other, media commentators and experts have very high expectations for Hawthorn because we've done so well the last 2 years.
Hmm.
And so then when we do something like not win a final, it's, oh, Hawthorn have, crashed out and they're not meeting expectations of what they could be. When on the other hand, it's okay, this is actually our third and fourth season, and we finished top four both times, which is pretty exciting for a
Hmm.
team that's still such a baby. Um, but yeah, that being said, I think my feelings about the women's team, my expectations are pretty similar to the men's team in that we've had success in the last 2 years, and it's been really amazing to see that quick growth, even though we only entered fairly recently. So I would definitely expect again to see that continue and to see our team get better and hopefully on a trajectory towards success. And it's very clear from Hawthorn and the team that their goal is to win that first final. And so, absolutely, that's what I'll be coming into the season hoping for.
Hmm.
And yeah, really manifesting that I get to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting. We'll talk a little bit more of the W here in a little bit. As a huge W fan, I'm interested to see how you go on this. But my next question, this is a fun one, and I'm going to throw this in because, as the huge W fan that you are, I'm going to ad lib, and we're going to do the women's side instead of the men's. We're going to do the women's side. So I'm going to install you as the list manager for the women's Hawthorn team for real quick. All 17 clubs are open. You can snatch one player from any of the 17 clubs to hop over to Hawthorn and to maybe push you to get that win in finals and maybe get yourself to a prelim or maybe even a flag. Who's the one player you bring to Hawthorn for your W side?
So, having watched the 2025 season, I think it was very obvious to anyone who watched Hawthorn for more than 5 minutes that we have a problem up forward. And Anya McDonough had an amazing season. She won our best and fairest. She's fantastic. Our coach, Daniel Webster, described her as if Anya gets near the ball, she manages to convert it into a scoring opportunity,
Hmm.
which is pretty amazing to have as a player. So McDonough is fantastic up front, but in our 2025 season, she was creating a lot of opportunities, but she was going it alone a lot of the time. And there were a lot of games where she was being, double played, being surrounded. It was, again, I feel like it's obvious if you watch Hawthorn, you're an opposition team, you create a plan to shut down McDonough. And while I think that we made some moves in the trade period to hopefully improve our forward situation, in thinking about who I would add if I was the list manager and I had these magic powers, again, in watching the 2025 season, Kate Hall played amazingly for
Hmm.
Melbourne. She was fantastic. And if I could slot anyone straight into Hawthorn, I think she would be a really, really good addition to our team because she would create so many opportunities forward. She would absolutely enliven that part of our team, which is where
Hmm.
we need it the most. And the other really big thing that stood out about the Hawthorn team this season was that we are very young. And again, this is very much based on the fact that it was our fourth year. A lot of our players are very young. Jazz Fleming, who I love, is still in her early 20s, which is so exciting on the other side of it because you
Hmm.
think to yourself, she's only just going to keep getting better, and I can't wait to see what she looks like as a player in 5 years. Uh, but there were definitely some times this season, and again, it was compounded by the fact we had a lot of injuries, and the injuries just so happened to fall on a lot of our senior and players with more experience. But there were some times this year where we really looked like we needed another leader out there on the field. And as much as I think the AFLW is starting to be transformed by these younger players who have gotten to play footy their whole lives and have had the kinds of pathways that even someone like me wouldn't have had growing up because those things just didn't exist. And,
Hmm.
girls didn't play footy to the extent that boys play footy. The presence of leaders and of W players who've just got those games under their belt when the AFLW is still so new as a competition itself. We just finished the 10th season of the thing as a whole, even though I talk about Hawthorn being young, really the W itself is really young too. Having a player who's someone like Kate Hoare, who has that experience of, I've come out here and I've done this, and I know how to play these games and I know how to win. I feel like that would be an amazing addition to Hawthorn's side as well.
Yep. That's you will get no argument from me. Kate Hoare is one of the best in absolutely agree. And the best part is she can give you a spell for an Emily Bates through the middle. She can go in if you're having trouble because you're maybe not getting the clearance that you want to. Kate can go in there, get it, and then be able to find a target and then shift herself forward. I'm 100% with you. I think that would be magnificent to bring over to Hawthorn on that one. So as we kind of said, you're a huge AFLW supporter. And again, I agree with you. 10 seasons in, I think it's only getting better. I just wish AFL House would actually pull its head out of a body cavity. I won't say. Whoops, sorry. As per usual, I always have to get my shot in. Talk me through it because this was as you said, this was another season where Hawthorn, again, top two finish, fantastic. I mean, North Melbourne was North Melbourne. We'll put them in the corner for just a second here. Again, another one, the finals didn't go the way you wanted. Is this a little bit of, again, the issue of you're not playing everybody once? So do you feel that was Hawthorn really a top two side, or was it just kind of the way it kind of went on? It's interesting as a Hawthorn fan. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
So we finished fourth this
Oh,
year.
yes. Yeah.
So
Top four.
we
Mhm.
finished second the year before.
Yep. Have my
And
years
I
flipped.
think,
Sorry about that.
yeah, all good. I think we got a lot of criticism for finishing second in the 2024 season, particularly because, as you say, of the fixture. And I mean, I think it's very obvious and hopefully, a pretty universal opinion that I'll say I would love the AFLW to have a fixture where every team plays every other team once. Uh, I think that would be the biggest, positive change that they could make for the competition. That is
Yep.
absolutely 1,000% what I want to see. That being said, the attitude I had for that season was very much, okay, the AFL, the way it's structured at the moment, in so many ways, is not fair. And when the teams don't play each other once, of course the competition is not fair. When you look at the fact that both of the AFLs, the 18 teams, you still have this massive chunk of them that are based in Melbourne. That's not fair, obviously. And there are so many facets of it that are unbalanced. And I think we can all agree that the AFL may try to fix those things in some ways, but none of it is really quite perfect, is it? Um,
It's never going to be because there's very few
no,
things that you can do to fix it because the
exactly.
things that you can do to fix it are gonna it's almost kind of one of those like with the men's like all the whinging from the Victorian teams about the academies. I'm like, well, it's kind of an evening out because you guys have the Victorian teams have the advantage of so many games of your game that
Yes,
what was it? Collingwood and the men's never left Victoria for 2 months. Like,
correct.
there's your advantage. Your advantage is when we actually play, you don't have to leave your home beds for 2 months, where an interstate side has to leave their home base every other week if
Yeah,
it's home
like,
away, home away, home away. So I'm one of those. They'll never balance everything out. So there's sometimes that I think people need to understand there are going to be things that are going to fluctuate and change. I agree with you. The women's competition, it is going to be weird until the women get 12, 14, 15 games. And unfortunately, the way the AFL keeps putting the metrics, I will finger quote them for those that aren't watching the YouTube video. I just don't know how these women are going to accomplish these metrics when the AFL house is literally almost stacking the deck to be sure that they're not accomplishing it. That's the frustrating part with that because the competition needs it. Because Hawthorn is an incredible team, but there's still some teams that if we really played in the regular season, would it change? Would Hawthorn have finished in the bottom four of the top eight if they would have played some of the other teams in the competition. We don't know. So, and I think that's the
Exactly.
frustrating part. So,
Yeah, and my attitude during the 2024 season was, okay, the fixture's unbalanced. I feel like we all wish that every team could play each other once.
mhm,
What Hawthorn needs to do and what every team needs to do is win the games that are in front of them.
yep,
And that's what Hawthorn did. And you could say they had an easier fixture, but at the end of the day, having, even if you have an easy fixture, no win is ever guaranteed. One of the most exciting things that we see in AFL is when we see crazy upsets,
mhm,
and they happen all the time. And so, what Hawthorn did, the way that I see it very much, is that we looked at the games we had in front of us and we won as many as we could. And that's
yep,
all you can do as a team at the end of the day. And then, in addressing that season, we definitely got given a harder fixture in the most recent season because of our success.
yep,
And we did, in fact, still manage to finish top four.
mm,
So I hope that that has alleviated some of those, I guess, criticisms that we got from that season. And again, it's not a perfect system the
mm,
way that the AFLW works. The teams don't get to play each other once. The fixtures are kind of graded based on how you performed the following year that, don't often always take into account the different factors or reasons why that might be.
yep,
So, yeah, I think uh, a lot of the time because the W is still young and because of some of the factors, it's sometimes hard to make those kind of statements. And like you say, it's easy for someone to guess, oh, but if Hawthorn had played these other teams, then they would have had this loss and this loss. We actually don't know.
mhm. And
I watched,
we'll never know. And that's the part
and
that
we'll never know.
it's the same thing with would Fremantle have won the premiership in 2020 when the
Yeah,
season got
yeah,
canceled after the quarterfinals. So we'll never know. We can guess, but we will never know. And that's the hardest part about it is that we won't ever know because the way it was set up. Like as a Swans fan, they made the finals in 2023. Did they probably deserve to be there? We'll never know because they did what they did, but the next year's fixture much more difficult. Then they finish in the bottom. They finish in the bottom four the next year. So I'm 100% with you. Until the women earn more games, which again is the metric system, and again let's not get into that. Um, it's going to be a crapshoot every year. It's going to be who do you get in who do you get in your and then how do they do? Because you never know when you're going to have a year where Essendon can't keep anybody healthy this year. So, and
mm,
they've been a finals team previous seasons, and they
hmm
couldn't stay healthy this year. And the Swans get bitten in the last round and don't make the finals because of Essendon this year. So, you never know, and I think that's the frustrating part as a huge W supporter is that there's still so much that could be fixed if there's just a few more games to
yes.
let teams play more. Like even if you got it to 15 to where there was only two teams that you don't play, at least you got a really good sample size of everybody in the competition playing each other. So who knows? Frustrating. Very, very frustrating. So I absolutely love it, Julia. I absolutely love it. I'm gonna real quick before we move on to the last few questions I have is how hard was it losing Tilly Lucas Rod to GWS?
Oh, I mean, I'd be lying if
I'm
I said it didn't
not
break
trying to
my
kick you.
heart
I'm sorry. I'm
just
really
a
not
little
trying to kick you.
bit.
Love Till to
I was
death.
being very nice. I wasn't even the one who brought up the Sydney Essendon game, which I have to say I watched all of. Um,
Essendon deserved to
uh,
win that. They mucked that game up. That's exactly what they
yeah,
needed to do to
it was
win.
a
I
crazy
tipped.
game.
Yep. When I talked to my Essendon supporter Jade, I said they deserved to win it because they played better footy that day. They did
Yeah,
exactly what they
yeah.
needed to do. They did it. The Swan didn't deserve to make the finals because in a game they needed to win, they didn't. Plain and simple.
Mm. Yeah, I love Tilly Lucas Rod, and I think we owe so much to them as a club because they were
Hmm.
our inaugural captain, and I feel like they did, yeah, they did so much to set up our initial success. And even though those first few seasons we didn't win very many games, I still think, getting a club off the ground into a comp that's already running is a really daunting challenge. And I think that they clearly were such a big part of that
Hmm.
process and that they will always have such an important place in our club. And not only that, I feel like they've done so much uh, to really advance, I guess, the they've done so much to demonstrate how important and how essential queerness is, not only to Hawthorn, but to the AFLW as a
Hmm.
whole. So I have a lot of respect for them, and I always will, even though they've moved to GWS, for their role in the W in that sense.
Hmm.
Uh, that being said, I think I understand the move. I suspect that we couldn't pay them what they're worth anymore, and that their experience and their role is now seen as more valuable to a club like GWS as compared to us.
Hmm.
But I will certainly very much miss seeing them pull on the brown and gold. I think they leave behind really big shoes to fill, not only as a player and the role that they were, doing as part of our defense in the more recent years, but as a leader and as someone who's really important to our club, particularly in the most recent season, given that our captain Emily Bates got injured halfway through. Uh, Obviously, Eliza West, our vice captain, really stepped up. But in
Hmm.
noticing and watching those games, I felt like Tilly, who was still a member of our leadership group, was one of the players who really stepped up in that
Hmm.
time as well to try and lead us and get us through that slightly more challenging period when we were really succumbing to injuries very Essendon style.
Yeah, and I've as sad as it is to see Tilly leave, I think the move was very good for GWS. Again, I'm not trying to say that Hawthorn shouldn't have resigned them, but I think this is great for the competition to see a player of her caliber join a club that has had so many struggles
Yeah.
keeping stars, keeping players at the club, and for them to step in and to be that helper, because Elise Parker has really kind of held that on the back of her shoulders for so much.
Hmm.
To see a caliber of player like Tilly joining them, fantastic for the competition. Sad to see her leave Hawthorn. Sad to see them leave Hawthorn. Really sad because they've played so well there.
Yeah.
Completely devastated to see them leave. But again, I think for the competition as a whole, this could be very, very good because you're seeing a club like GWS starting to bring in more talent. The draft now going national, I think has been fantastic for them too. Getting players like a Howley, Grace Martin coming in, I think fantastic for GWS again. I know I'm a Swan supporter, but I want the competition to get better. And when
Absolutely. I'm with you
GWS
there.
is absolutely cratering, they need that. Like I
Mm.
love Georgia Garnett. I know she can be annoying when she plays Sydney because she's so good, but this is nothing but good to see superstar talent players like Till join them. Fantastic. So sad to see them leave, but great for the competition. So we'll get to my last few questions of the podcast. And this is just as I kind of told you off mic, and I've said so many times, I've not been to Australia. It is my goal. I will get there. But when I go, I want to be ready. I'm going to go during the footy season. So I must ask this. When you go to the footy as a patron, what's your go-to food at the football?
First of all, this is my favorite question. I feel like this is exactly where footy journalism needs to be. My go-to food at the footy is undoubtedly 100% hot chips, tomato sauce. Uh,
Mhm.
Honestly, it barely feels like I've been to the footy if I haven't had my hot chips. And now that I go to games as a journalist and I'm focused on covering the game first and not necessarily filling my food requirements, honestly, it's a struggle and maybe something I should fix for next season. Beyond hot chips, if I'm feeling a little bit more peckish, I might also get a sausage roll or a meat pie.
Mhm.
Those are definitely my go-tos.
Definitely, you're hitting the top ones. The meat pie and the hot chippies have the two highest votes when it comes to on the podcast. And then for me, this is one like, okay, take your journalist hat for just a bit. Just be your fan. Just be your fan. If you could sit anywhere, your ideal place to sit when you go to the football.
So I feel like it does depend whether I'm at the MCG or whether I'm at a smaller suburban
Hmm.
ground. At the MCG, level two is expensive for a reason. I discovered when I sat there for the first time recently. Discovered that the seats are padded. Nobody told me that. Uh, so level two is amazing because you get the perfect balance between you feel like you're close to the game, like you're on level one, but you also get the added height means that you have a perfect view of the entire
Entire
ground.
ground. Hmm.
In terms of the position, I really love to sit on the wing. By far, that is my absolute favorite place to sit. I have also sat behind the goals and I get the excitement of that. But I guess for me, the trade-off is obviously that if you're sat behind the goals, then you're only sat behind your team's goals for half of the game, and you have much more of a, I guess, a disjointed view. Whereas if you're on the wing, to me, it gives you a better chance to get a more holistic view of the entire game. And as long as you have a bit of height as well, then you can see the ball and you can see the play no matter where things are happening. When I can't afford seats on level two, which is often, I enjoy sitting up on level four because, again, even though I totally understand the excitement of sitting right down and close on level one, I really value having the height to be able to see the whole game.
Hmm.
This obviously gets a bit challenging if you're at a suburban ground. So I definitely will much higher rate a suburban ground that has a bit more of height where you can get a view where you can
Hmm.
see all of the action. I really dislike standing on the wing of footy oval and not being able to see the action on the other side of the wing. Footy is
Hmm.
exciting. There's a lot happening. It's very fast. I want to see what's happening. A big change I made recently is I started taking binoculars to every game, which has, for a big part, solved that issue when I'm at slightly flatter grounds.
Hmm. Yeah, no, and the most popular one is that second level wing if they could have their ideal place to sit. But there are some that are just they're the cheer squad
Yes.
crazies. They have to
Yeah.
be on ground level, right behind the goals, cheering with the other cheer squad. Absolutely love it. Again, it's ideal for you. So I absolutely love it. And then my last question, I've started a playlist of this. This is so much fun for me because I never know what I'm going to hear. So I'm going to ask this. Favorite game of football you have ever seen, whether live, on the telly, at the ground, women's, men's, state league, doesn't matter. Favorite game of football you have ever seen.
So I've got one for men's, one for women's.
Sure.
My favorite men's game that I've ever seen was the Hawthorn Geelong 2013 prelim. And I say this having attended all three of our flags in the three-peat era. And they were obviously all very exciting, but it was the 2013 prelim that was really the one that opened the floodgates. And I will never forget the adrenaline, the enthusiasm, the excitement, the emotion when Hawthorn finally broke the Kennet curse. It was just unbelievable. I was there with my dad. He likes to refer to that game as the day, he likes to refer to it as the most amount of grown men he's ever seen cry, which I think is hilarious. So emotions were riding absolutely high. I will say, if you're putting it on to watch, it is so hilarious to me how different of an experience that game has been to rewatch as opposed to my initial viewing of it, because the
Mhm.
last 5 minutes when we finally hit the front felt like a lifetime in person. And I've rewatched it since, and would you believe it? They are 5 very normal minutes of football.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that game would be quite as exciting to you. My other favorite men's game, which is my favorite non-Hawthorn game of all time, is the Brisbane Geelong Miracle on Grass, also from
Mhm.
that season. And I genuinely rewatch the last 2 minutes of that game maybe once every 6 months since that game happened because it is just, it shouldn't have been possible for Ash McGrath to have kicked that goal in the last 20 seconds, but it's just football magic when you
Mhm.
watch it. And then to finish off, my favorite ever W game was the first ever Hawthorn AFLW game. Like I said earlier, Kalshadir is my favorite player in the men's for a lot of different reasons, but also because of his connection to cancer in his family.
Mhm.
And a very similar story can be told about our first ever AFLW game.
Yep.
So, in the week
Sophie
before our
Locke.
first, Sophie Locke, you know
Yep.
exactly what I'm about to say.
Yep.
So, Sophie Locke very sadly lost her mother to cancer 2 weeks before our first game, and getting selected, getting told that she was going to play in our first ever game was so emotional and so exciting for her. And I was there at Docklands when she ended up being the player to kick our first ever goal in the AFLW. And it
Mhm.
was just one of those moments where it felt so magical, and it was like, well, this is obviously how it was always going to happen. It was meant for us to get the license this year. Of course, it was going to be Sophie to kick our first goal. It was just so special, and it meant so much to her and so much to the team. And yeah, it was, there's genuinely no other way to describe it. Like, it just felt like it was so meant to be. And I don't even care that we lost that game. Like, you'd think my favorite Hawthorn game, my favorite memory would be of a game that we won, that we thrashed someone, or we just got over the line. But
Mhm.
it was genuinely so exciting, and I still think that's the moment that has meant the most to me.
Yeah, no, that was incredible. I remember watching that and seeing Docklands with so many people at
That
Marvel
was amazing.
Stadium, whatever the heck they're going to call it nowadays. I wish they'd make up their minds. No, it was absolutely incredible. It's still to this day. I want to see more AFLW games under the roof at Docklands. I think it would be incredible for the competition, but what do I know? I'm just a random guy over here in the States. So,
Well, our coach, Daniel Webster, does happen to agree with you. Just gonna put that out there.
well, it doesn't take too much of a rocket scientist to realize that
No,
it
I
would
don't
be
think it does.
fantastic. And I think if the more that you get it, especially with the AFL owning it, come on, let's find a way to get the grand final there. I'm sorry, I will disagree with Sonia Hood complaining about half filled Marvel Stadium. My favorite response is, "Well, your men do it all the time. What do you have a problem with it?" I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that. I apologize. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That's all my questions, Julia. It's fantastic to sit down and talk to somebody so passionate about football and to see that you're doing the sports journalism and getting into it more. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. This has been an incredible sit down and chat.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a wonderful time. I've enjoyed listening to some of the other female fans in this series, and I will definitely make sure to check out the rest of them.
Yeah, I've had some cracking ones. Cannot wait for that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, keep track more of these off-season supporter series. And I've got a few more irons in the fire. I've got a couple of other ones. I'm really hoping to get a few other fun chats over the off season to get us all the way to March and get us back to the footy season when the footy begins again with the AFL and all of the state league stuff. You guys know me. I'm going to talk footy as much as I possibly can. So that is going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals. And we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.